Hey there, not a frequent poster, but in need of some serious advice this time. Brace yourself, things might get a bit wild. I've been married to Alex for over 5 years, deeply in love, all that good stuff. Back in our dating days, we were cool with each other's families, not super tight, just friendly. Fast forward to today, and that friendliness is turning into a bit of a headache. So here's the deal. My sister-in-law, Rachel, and her husband, Tom, along with their 3 kids, recently got the boot from their rented place because the landlord wanted to spruce it up. Shocking news, right? Rachel, being close to Alex, reached out for help. Initially, we were all about finding them a new place pronto. However, things got weird when every house Alex suggested got rejected. Turns out, Rachel wanted to move in with us. Now our place isn't mansion-sized. It's a 3-bedroom apartment with 2 us already in it, not exactly designed to host a family of 5. I couldn't commit to the chaos, not knowing how long they planned to crash in our place. Weeks, months, who knows? Being the stand-up guy he is, Alex understood my concerns. But being a caring brother, he didn't want to leave Rachel and her family hanging. That's when he remembered I own another house, thanks to my mom's inheritance. And that's where the real dilemma begins. Typically, I use the house as a rental property. After my previous tenants moved out, the house was going to be vacant for about a month. I agreed to let Rachel and her family stay there, assuming a month would be sufficient for them to sort out their housing situation. Little did I know, they would turn out to be so shameless and cause trouble for me. I informed Rachel that the house was available for them, but I emphasized that this property is my business. It's how I earn a living. Despite my explanation, her attitude has been off, and it's been bothering me. From the day she moved in, she's been calling me every other day, pointing out issues with the house, expecting me to address them without any cost. During my initial visit with Alex to help them settle in, Rachel's attitude towards the house caught me off guard. She expressed dissatisfaction and even asked if she could change the wallpaper because it was too much for her. Despite feeling uneasy about it, I made it clear that alterations were not allowed since it's a rental property. She brushed it off, but her annoyance was evident. I suggested I be more understanding due to her rough patch, but I found it hard to ignore her ungrateful behavior, especially when she was staying rent-free. Now, a month later, dealing with weekly complaints has taken its toll. Despite my efforts to address each issue as a considerate sister-in-law and landlord, it seems she doesn't appreciate it at all. The situation has become increasingly frustrating, and I'm starting to realize that allowing her to stay was a significant mistake. To top it off, I received a call yesterday from someone interested in renting the house. Seizing the opportunity, I had already informed Rachel that I'd be back in the rental business within a month. I assumed she would be actively searching for alternative housing. Even without a potential tenant in the picture, the idea of her expecting to live rent-free in my house for an extended period seemed disrespectful. Personally, I would never consider taking advantage of someone in that manner. After receiving a call from a potential tenant, I immediately reached out to Rachel to convey the need for her to move out soon. I wasn't confrontational, simply asking her when she planned to vacate. However, her reaction was as if I had asked her to commit a crime. She became defensive, stating they hadn't been looking at other houses and wished to stay longer. I explained the financial strain this would put me under, especially after covering the repairs and changes she had requested with my own money. Despite a lengthy conversation, she remained adamant about needing a few more months before considering relocation. This surprised me, considering she had assured me of her departure within a month when I initially offered her the house. Convincing her proved futile and frustrating. I ended the call, a move I later realized was not the best decision. That night, Alex received a call from her portraying me as mean and rude, lacking manners for hanging up without a proper conclusion. Ben, understanding my perspective, didn't press the issue, but he tried explaining the situation to Rachel. Unfortunately, she remained emotional, emphasizing her current lack of alternative housing options. After discussing the matter, Ben and I decided on a strategy to address the situation and ensure fairness. We came up with the idea of making them pay rent. If they truly had nowhere else to go, They could stay in the house, but they would have to contribute financially. It seemed like a reasonable compromise to both of us. This morning, I called up Rachel to share my decision. To say she didn't take the news well would be an understatement. The moment the word rent left my mouth, she unleashed the most piercing shriek I've ever heard. As if I had committed some heinous act, I went on to explain the practicalities, emphasizing that if she doesn't contribute rent, it puts me at a financial loss. I also mentioned having other potential clients lined up who were ready to pay. If she couldn't, her response was a burst of anger, hurling all kinds of names my way. She accused me of being self-centered, claiming I only think about myself and disregard others' wants and needs. I even offered to reduce the rent by half because she's family, but that only fueled her anger. She demanded I asked for no rent at all, citing her status as my sister-in-law and insisting it's my duty to treat her like family, especially during times of need. Refusing to let her take advantage, I made it clear that if she wasn't willing to pay rent, she was free to leave at the earliest convenience. However, she abruptly hung up on me. What's ironic is that the last time I took such a stance, she called Alex shedding tears and painting me as the rude one, hurling various names my way. Now she's repeating the same behavior. Honestly, I find it hard to believe Rachel would stoop so low as to refuse rent and continue living in my house for free. Her excuses about financial struggles don't align with the reality of their well-paying jobs, frequent vacations, and lavish celebrations. Besides, she paid rent for her previous house without issue, so I can't fathom why it's suddenly a problem. I suspect she's expecting preferential treatment because we're family, assuming she can get things for free. However, I won't allow her to take advantage of me. She caused significant drama about me asking for rent, especially when she visited in the afternoon. While alone with her in the room, she expressed anger and accused me of selfishness. Yet, as soon as Ben entered the room, her demeanor changed completely. Her transition from anger to sadness happened so swiftly, leaving me in awe of her acting skills. It was almost impressive how convincingly she portrayed herself, momentarily making me question the authenticity of her emotions. She went to Ben holding his arm and began a performance of sadness, claiming mistreatment for asking her to pay rent when she's family. Despite Ben's attempt to convey the seriousness of my decision, Rachel escalated the situation. She pulled out the emotional artillery, tearing up and accusing me of manipulating Ben into going against his own sister. According to her, this showcased my selfishness and stubbornness, as I supposedly couldn't prioritize others over myself. This accusation was far from the truth, given the numerous instances where I had supported and helped them in various situations. However, this matter was non-negotiable for me, and my attempts to explain fell on deaf ears. After a bit more whining, she left the house in anger, slamming the door behind her. I found her exit disrespectful, and I was relieved that Ben agreed with me on that point. We sat down to discuss possible solutions, realizing that extreme measures might be necessary. Taking immediate action, I sent Rachel a concise message informing her that she had 1 month to find another place and move out, or she could start paying rent. I even offered her a significantly lower rent than standard tenants. However, she remained dissatisfied, responding with a short paragraph labeling me as a terrible person and insisting she wouldn't move out or pay rent, regardless of my actions. Having reached my limit, I decided that if she didn't vacate the house within a month, I would take the necessary steps to evict her, including legal action. Update number 1. I know this is a late update from the previous post about a month ago, but the situation has escalated. My sister-in-law is still refusing to move out of my rental house and pay rent despite the options I provided. I made efforts to ease the process for them, even reducing the rent, but it seems they took it all for granted. This is what happens when people think they're superior to others. I gave my sister-in-law, Rachel, a month to find another place or start paying rent. Considering there were interested tenants waiting, despite my attempts to communicate, a month has passed, and they show no intention of moving. The frustrating part is that I discovered this not through any update from them, but because they seem to vanish off the face of the earth. As the 1 month mark approached, multiple messages went unanswered, and even when I resorted to calling repeatedly, there was no response. Rachel, who usually never missed calls from Alex, then suddenly began declining them altogether, realizing she was purposefully ignoring me. I decided I had tolerated enough of her behavior and needed to take matters into my own hands. Yesterday, I woke up early, mentally preparing for the confrontation, and showed up at the house when it was a reasonable time. Upon Rachel opening the door, I swiftly entered before she could slam it in my face. It was apparent that they had made no preparations to move out. The furniture and belongings were all in the same place as a month ago when I had advised them to start packing. As I took in the unchanged surroundings, my anger surged, and I had to restrain myself from screaming at Rachel. Instead, I confronted her as calmly as possible, outlining the plan moving forward. She admitted to having no intention of moving out, expressing annoyance at my persistent texts and calls when she knew they had nowhere else to go. I reiterated telling her to vacate the house this week and urged her to act like a mature adult. Update number 2. You won't believe what happened this week. Remember how Rachel complained about not being able to move out because she had nowhere else to go? Well, she also claimed to be too busy to look for another house. The confrontation at her house occurred a few days ago, and since then I've sent numerous texts urging them to move out ASAP and find a new place. Unbelievably, she either ignored my messages or responded with kitchen supplies. I ensured that by the end of the weekend, more than half of Rachel's house was packed and moved into the garage. Changing the locks on every room, including the main front door, became a crucial step. The only accessible place was the garage, housing all their belongings. Despite knowing it was the right thing to do, nervousness lingered as I anticipated Rachel's reaction. As expected, she unleashed her fury when I received a late-night call around 10 p.m. Her voice trembled with barely opened, acting as if she owned the place. Asserting my ownership, I refused to comply, telling her she could spend the night in the garage. When they discovered their belongings packed in boxes, both adults and the family erupted in outrage. I explained the situation, and they resorted to threatening lawsuits. I calmly informed them they were welcome to spend the night in the garage before leaving. It's been a day since then, and I haven't heard from them, making me a bit apprehensive about what might unfold. My defense the next day, I contacted my lawyer to apprise her of the events over the past few months. I filed a lawsuit against Rachel for damages to my house and for occupying the property without paying rent or reaching any agreements with me. The legal document was promptly mailed to her, and witnessing the expression on her face when she read it brought me immense satisfaction. Rachel had underestimated my capability to take legal action, not realizing the extent of her adversary in person. She caused all these issues, although her lawyer argued that the damages might have originated from previous tenants. I countered with a meticulous record of photographs taken before each new tenant occupied the house. These images served as irrefutable proof that Rachel not only damaged my property but also occupied it without consent, even though it was legally under my name. 2 days after winning the case, I am celebrating my victory at my house, while the whereabouts and actions of Rachel and her family remain unknown. I discovered Rachel and her family living in a trailer near the empty parking lot adjacent to my apartment. While powerless to address their presence in the public parking space, I expressed a sincere wish that she finds an alternative location for her trailer. In her quest to tarnish my reputation, Rachel has been spreading falsehoods about me, portraying me as a villain who is tearing the family apart. To counter this narrative, Ben had to reach out to family members and explain the situation, exposing Rachel's lies. Just a message or call, I am relieved that this chapter of my life has concluded, allowing me to return to a peaceful existence. The proactive approach I took in reclaiming my property underscores the necessity of standing up against such unwarranted exploitation.